This video is on the affirmative action system in India. Like many other societies, India also has had social injustice on some of its groups of population. The pyramid that you see on the left side is the distribution of the caste distribution in the Hindu religion, which forms about 80% of India's population. As you see, the Brahmins were the highest class for several years, several thousands years. So it's estimated that this caste system was existing between about 2,000 to 3,000 years. And the class under them was Kshatriyas, which were kings and warriors, as often kings would seek the counsel of priests, and that happens in many civilizations. Then the next class was merchants and landowners. We are familiar about this in the British culture, where blacksmith and these last names also come from this class of people. And the last class was Sudras, which were commoners, peasants, and servants. So as you can see, and you can see, and not to ignore the last one, the bottomest class were untouchables. These were out of caste. They were they did not belong to any of the above classes. They were street sweepers, latrine cleaners, cleaning your toilets, and cleaning the gutters of the cities and small towns. That was the only job they were locked in. Uh, it's obvious that there was discrimination on them, and as you see go at the top of the pyramid, you see that there is a discrimination on each of the class, but the discrimination is not equal. You cannot say that the Kshatriya was equally discriminated as equal as untouchables. Or, for example, Vaishyas, which were landowners, merchants, jewelers, carpenters, goldsmiths, blacksmiths, they were not as equally discriminated against as untouchables by the Brahmins. So they would be only probably they were their social class came below Brahmins, and they could not be discriminated by Sudras or untouchables. I'm talking about the Vaishyas. Similarly, the kings, they could never be discriminated by the Vaishyas, Sudras, or untouchables. That argument nobody can buy. Um, so the affirmative action in different cultures is based on what you're lacking in, and the argument behind affirmative action in India is that uh, the lower classes, when I use the term lower classes, I'm referring to Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Sudras, and untouchables, all of them, and I'm only excluding Brahmin. So the argument that they make is that the lower anybody who is a lower caste needs a reservation. So what happens is in India right now you have a percentage-based reservation. Um, when you go to other cultures, like I don't know what British, but you hear about in the news about America. If you have a black candidate who's applying to a job or a school, they would be they would definitely be favorably like many Ivy League universities. You must have heard in the news about this, that they give too much or too many positions they give away to African Americans and Asians. But that's what's going on here is uh, uh, so not all the applicants get the job. They review the candidates on a case by case basis, and there are some blacks people who have grown up in a wealthy neighborhood. They've had a good life. For example, you can't say like a rap star or a hip hop star who's a millionaire face the same level of social injustice in the current generation as somebody who's living in a south bad neighborhood of South Chicago. But yeah, the argument remains that there's no doubt that no matter who the hip hop star or pop star, his ancestors, they were discriminated against in the past. So the argument in India is because these social classes, Kshatriya and below, they were discriminated against. They were kept away. They did not have access to education, especially Sudras and untouchables. And no matter what outdated system of education that was, it was basically based on mythology and reciting texts and those kinds. Formal education in India only came after the British. It started in when they colonized India. They started schools in 19th century, between the 1800s and onwards. That's when medical colleges and formal education were established. So they were so the Sudras and Vaishyas and untouchables were denied education, but that education system was outdated and is not relevant to today's time, except only the ancient Indian Ayurvedic medicine system is practiced. That is the only probably the only science that is in existence today. Otherwise, all other forms of education during those times, like archery and I don't know what was there, those are not even relevant today. But anyways, so you cannot deny the fact that this group were denied opportunity, and there has to be, as on the right side, the figure shows there has to be an opportunity for all the groups, and the best way to deliver the opportunity is by uh, is when as you see the shortest kid over there gets the um, gets more height, a taller box than the one in the red shirt, than the one who is tall. So anyway, just ignore the right side of the figure. We are not talking about that now. Right now, we are only looking at equality versus equity. I just picked up this picture from the internet. I did not mean to talk about. I mean, of course, that justice is a different argument, but we are right now talking about equality and equity. So the current caste-based, the affirmative action system in India is equality. I would say, because what they're doing is they based on their census and based on what is the percentage of each social class, based on the birth certificates which were initiated by the British, so based on that percentage, there is they're trying to have reservation or quota system. So, for example, in a medical school, you would have 50%. So right now there are 27% positions reserved for OBCs, which means they're traditionally Vaishyas. Roughly, I would say vaguely they would be merchants and landowners, and also some of the peasants would, I think, will also come in that category. But I'm not very clear about that the boundary, the demarcation. But Vaishyas and Sudras, they are given OBC reservation. And recently there were the warrior castes like Jats and Marathas in the state of Maharashtra. They were given reservations too. So these reservations are provided on quota basis. So if in a state you have I don't know if they calculate the percentage of population, but OBCs are given 27% reservation, SC and STs together make 25% reservation, and so on. Roughly, there is about 50% reservation in most of the states in India. So that many seats are reserved in a medical school, in an engineering school, in college, in after high school. Basically, everywhere you go in a government job or any form of education, you have to follow these. The seats are reserved based on these castes in every school. So in a medical school, say for example of 100, which has 100 seats, 100 positions, they would fill 27% OBCs, which means roughly Vaishyas and Sudras and some of the Kshetras, and then you would have a scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, about a certain percentage. And I think about for out of caste, untouchables, it's about between 10 percentage, vaguely, if I'm correct. So as you see, the untouchables, their proportion is lower compared to the population percentage is lower compared to Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, and therefore they are given equally, proportionately low representation. Now that conflicts with the principle of equity, where you need to have more positions for untouchables compared to OBCs. For SCs and STs, you need to have more positions than we will see that on the next slide over here. Uh, so here you see that now this is a On the right, on the left side, you have the 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 caste distribution in medical education and government jobs for a state of Tamil Nadu. And on the right side, you have the population distribution by caste in a different states. I couldn't find data for the same state, but these are different states. But regardless, the argument is the same because many of the federal government jobs and education positions are given roughly the same percentage of reservation. For OBCs, it's 27%, and for scheduled tribes and scheduled castes is about 7.5% and so on. So here you see that you know uh, the general category in the state of Tamil Nadu. So those who belong to upper caste or the Brahmin caste or and the second caste on that pyramid, they can only compete for 31% of the seats or in a college or in a medical school or in a government job. Here you see that about 70% of the positions are reserved for if you have a caste certificate for you. This is one of the most comprehensive. India is always people talk about India in a negative way, in human rights and discrimination and abuse. But you see, in no other country, even in America, you don't see the proportion of black population that fixed percentage. If there was a representation of fixed percentage of based on the percentage of black population across states, that would just never be impossible. But America is known for its social justice, right? Anyways, but regardless, I think even the most liberals or they would probably at this kind of system where they would also probably criticize because so what's going on is if India is a poor country, it's a developing country, and there are not as many doctors, not as many engineers, lawyers. So what's going on is currently, of all the government jobs, those jobs have been given to a certain percentage of all based on this percentage they have been filled. Now, the argument whether what percentage plus or minus 5 or 10%, 20% is a different thing. But what happens is because there are very few medical colleges, medical schools, and education, higher education institutes, what happens is those who have already got the benefits of this caste-based reservation system. For example, an OBC or a backward caste who has got a government job, a top government job, paying him a salary of in America to the equivalent of about $100,000, for $60 to $100,000. Now, these are not the salaries in India, but just to give an example of the salary class, the salary structure of what social class you belong. That person would get. There is no interview process in medical schools or a law school. What they do is they make you write an exam. Right, they make you take a test like an MCAT, and the test is a very very comprehensive test with the grading system that is able to students are students cannot have very few students have same points, and so they give you a rank based on different criteria, and so what happens is only based on that exam or the entrance exam you're provided the opportunity to study further. And those who are wealthy, OBCs or backward castes, scheduled tribes, scheduled castes, so they get an opportunity. They have money, so they can provide their children better high school education and better college education, or better pre-medical education, and they keep on reaping the benefits of the caste system when it comes to education. So now this system, therefore, is also very discriminatory against the backward class, all the backward class. So only if you get benefit and they have the resources to provide for the children, and they keep on getting the benefits, and they don't want to lose that, and that's why there is a huge political opposition to any change in the existing caste-based affirmative action, the quota or proportion-based affirmative action system in India. So you see, this video was just made to show you fallacies of how politics and affirmative action gets mixed together, and the real issue of solving social injustice gets kept aside. Now this is because India is a very big country. These populations groups represent a huge voting basis. Just like in America, if any politician, if he says that I will take away the Medicare to save the government money, if I will take away the Medicare by 50%, I'll cut the Medicare spending by 50%. If I am elected to be a president, do you think that person will be ever elected? Because he will never get the elderly American will vote for that person, because Medicare is a very emotional, and I think it's a very important. It's a very important issue for elderly Americans, because in many countries, for example, India, they don't have a Medicare system. So over there, if you take away any, if the benefit is not very penetrated, like very established, if you take that away, is that doesn't create much impact. But something which is serving a huge voting base, and if you propose to take it away from them, uh, there will be opposition, and they will not like it. And so this is just a basic human nature, that once you get something, when you're used to getting something, I mean, you wouldn't want to lose it. I mean, how else can you compare how else can you draw the analogy between Medicare, cutting Medicare spending versus taking away these percentages, or changing the affirmative action system so that it benefits the ones who need the most. But anyways, so these are two fallacies of this, two drawbacks of this system. One is that those who are really socially deprived, so for example, a scheduled tribe or a scheduled caste who is really poor, who is living in a small village in India, and everybody knows his caste, and he has to face the ordeal every day, that person doesn't get the benefit, whereas the same scheduled tribe or scheduled caste who lives in a bigger city, in a big apartment complex, big city like Mumbai or Delhi, which is cosmopolitan, and which is a melting pot of different parts of cultures of India, because India has about 30 states, and each state is a different culture, and nobody even knows if you are OBC or a scheduled tribe or a scheduled caste living in a Delhi or a Mumbai city. But they have resources, and they keep getting the benefits, and they are not, you can't call them backward. Of course, they have a history of like I said, an African American hip hop star. I mean, yeah, his 3 or 4 generations were discriminated against. But does it mean that you will give him the benefit, his children the benefit? Will you give Kanye West's kid medical school admission, and ignore the poor kid in the South Chicago who got just 1 point less than Kanye West's kid on the MCAT? Will you do that? So that's what's happening in India, and a lot of narrative in the outside the Indian culture, outside the Indian about India in in other societies, is that there is discrimination against Dalits, OBCs, the poor caste. There's caste system, and there's discrimination against the lower caste, and they don't get any opportunity. But this is the reality. This is what's going on right now, and this is actually even feeding into more divisions in the Indian society. And I hope this explanation, even both sides of the political ideology, liberals as well as conservatives, will appreciate this problem, because I know conservatives might hate this, and liberals usually they just don't like anything negative talked about the affirmative action system. So affirmative action system has to be very well designed. It has to be political, but also apolitical, in the sense it should not turn into a voting based situation. These were some of the important points I wanted to make in this video, and I hope the Indian audience who understands these nuances, uh, they will be able to at least I don't know what they'll be able to do, because the whole system is very complicated in India, and it's a very political system. Like I said, nobody wants to touch it, and it's feeding into a more very high discrimination for the general category, as well as the poor among the backward caste. The upper caste as well as the poor among the backward caste. Of course, there are many people who are many rich scheduled tribes, scheduled castes, and backward communities today, and there are many poor upper castes like Brahmins on the first slide on the pyramid, the top apex. There are many poor Brahmins today, and there are many wealthy scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Of course, there are many wealthy Brahmins too, but still, this is the whole thing system going on. Okay, thank you very much for watching this video.